Kirill looked thoughtfully at his sleeping son, and Gorky smiled. Is his fabulous family life come to an end? Bitter experience, unfortunately, prompted fears, which were, oh, how difficult, to get rid of. I had to pull myself together and try to figure everything out. I didn't want to believe in the bad, but the first marriage turned out to be unsuccessful. There was no one to consult with. The only kindred soul of his father left this world a long time ago. He raised his son alone, never getting married after the death of his beloved wife. Brought business skills, and gave a start in life. It is his merit in who Cyril has become today. At 38 years old, the man had more than one business, and an income with a lot of zeros. He treated all people equally, did not like to use his position to eliminate unwanted people, and dealt with partners carefully and honestly. For this, many entrepreneurs wanted to do business with him. He could be trusted, and the name of this person alone was already a guarantee of successful cooperation. He lived in abundance, could afford any whim, any idea to bring to life. Glory went ahead of him and success accompanied everything. It was everything you could dream of. A mansion on several floors with a garden and a swimming pool, several apartments in the capital, cars of different brands. Good friends were also real faithful, time-tested, but personal life somehow did not go well. Once the businessman was already married, but after several years of marriage there was a difficult divorce. It turned out that the wife was cheating, the woman was greedy for male attention and could not resist when one fan began to show it too insistently. Lena met Cyril as a young beauty. He noticed her at a beauty contest. Yes, he knew that many girls there set out to successfully marry a rich dad, but still hoped for a serious relationship. Who knows how many fans the wife actually had during the marriage? She has never lived up to the title of exemplary wife. She spends money madly only on jewelry and her own appearance. There are tons of fashion items in the wardrobes. During the divorce, she, of course, shook her husband's nerves, even tried to undermine his image with slander. In the end, it demanded several million. Cyril had to give up so that his ex-wife calmed down. There was no longer any desire to see her. She hasn't really bothered him since then. After Elena, a scorched desert remained in her heart for a long time. He no longer hoped to meet in his true love the one and only with whom he could build a lasting alliance based on mutual respect and care. There were still many women in his life, but none of them was suitable for the role of his beloved wife and mother of his future children. And among other things, Cyril so dreamed of an heir. It does not matter who will be the son or daughter. I wanted to pass on all my fortune to the baby and give way to this world. Everything changed one evening, when a man was returning from work. He was driving his powerful Jeep, when a stranger jumped out of nowhere right in front of his car and grabbed a tiny kitten sitting on the pavement. Cyril had time to react, and immediately hit the brakes, sharply turning the steering wheel to the right so as not to hurt anyone. He himself did not see the animal on the road, so he did not stop. "Hey, are you tired of living? Where do you rush under the very wheels?" He screamed in emotion, feeling his body doused with heat from the fear experienced. "Sorry," she said through tears, "there was just a kitten. I was afraid that you would knock him down. I didn't even have time to think about what I was doing. How did you not hurt yourself?" The man got out of the car, approaching the stranger. The woman was short, neat, 10 years younger than Cyril. Despite the red frightened eyes, it turned out to be very pretty. "But let's get in and I'll give you a lift before you rush somewhere else." Well, all three of us were lucky, otherwise we could not do without victims. The girl agreed and together we went to the address indicated by her. On the way we got into a conversation. It turned out she was working nearby. She loved nature and flowers. She was so gentle, light, and even kind. Judging by the fact that she risked her life without thinking to save an animal from under the wheels of a car. Unbeknownst to himself, Cyril relaxed in her company and became more talkative. As before, he joked, laughed, and his passenger also picked up the conversation quickly, chirping something in response, and when she remembered, something funny was filled with laughter before telling. Cyril did not even notice how time flew by on the road. For a long time he had not been so good, just with someone to talk heart, to laugh. Or maybe we'll see each other anyway, sit in a cozy place, drink coffee, have lunch. He suggested when we drove up to Svetlana's house. No, sorry, that's redundant, thanks for everything. The man smiled with restraint and waited until a new acquaintance enters the entrance. She sunk into the soul, and he could not accept the refusal, realizing that she could be his last chance for happiness. It didn't take much for Kirill to find out exactly where Sveta was working, and then everything was a matter of technique. Svetlana could not yield to the courtship of a stately businessman. Their dates have always been amazing. Cyril introduced to luxurious restaurants and country clubs, showered with bouquets and decorations. And he could not believe in his happiness, and it seems in true love. Without thinking twice, he made the most romantic marriage proposal to his beloved, and his chosen one answered. Yes. Friends like Svetlana, they appreciated his excellent tastes and good choices. But one thing about her confused them. The girl was very reluctant to talk about her family. Childhood and family were topics that she avoided at all costs. Caution and friends predicted that Sveta, like his first wife, was with him only for the sake of money and would leave him without funds after a divorce. But Cyril himself was not disturbed by this fact. He believed that he knew the bride well enough to trust her with his life. Therefore, the marriage ceremony did take place. Now he was happily married and returned home happily every day. Soon the son Dennis was born. He looked like both mom and dad. The kid grew up as a kind, inquisitive and cheerful child. During the decree of light, she left her job, doing household chores. Cyril invited a nanny to help, who spent most of the day with her son while his wife was cleaning and cooking. She herself kept the hearth and did not trust it to strangers. In the evening, she was waiting for the head of the family at a full table, and it seemed that everything turned out the way Kirill wanted. After 5 happy years, the couple raised their son together, but recently Cyril, who began to appear more often at home, in the middle of the day, began to notice strange behavior in his wife. She was constantly absent somewhere for inexplicable reasons. Here, it seemed, she had just been at home, and now she disappeared. She also appeared suddenly, and immediately began to tell something, as if she compensated for the time of her absence with conversations. And bad thoughts got into my head. Is it her teeth that she speaks to him, or what? Cyril resisted for a long time, but jealousy boiled in him so much that he began to suspect his wife of infidelity. It was already like that with him. The signs coincided for the second time. The husband could not calm down. Has he stepped on the same rake again? Then he turned to a private detective. He reported to the employer and said that his wife travels at a certain time to the same house on the outskirts of the city. But the most interesting thing about all this is that women use the services of the same taxi driver. Cyril suggested that this was in order to protect herself. She would not be compromised. It is easier to persuade one person to be silent than a dozen different drivers around the city. First, Kirill asked the same taxi driver if he knew who lives in that house, but they could not help him. Hurt by deceit, the husband came up with a plan to bring the unfaithful wife to clean water. There was enough money for his realization, so he could realize what he had in mind. To begin with, Kirill paid the taxi driver a fee for a whole month. And for a day I rented his car for a similar image with a driver. I had to turn to professional makeup artists to help him take on the look of the right person. On that day, Sveta called the taxi driver at lunchtime. He arrived and Kirill himself took his wife from the house. On the road, he did not once again start a conversation so that she would not recognize him by his voice. Having reached his destination, he dropped off the unsuspecting Svetlana at a small budget house, and there he remained sitting in a stuffy car. For a long time, the patience of her husband, who was burning with jealousy, was not enough. Just a few minutes later, he could not stand the agonizing wait and burst into an unfamiliar house with the intention of finding his wife in his arms, some rogue. He already imagined how he beats the face to someone unfamiliar. But what appeared before his eyes plunged Cyril into a stupor. His Sveta was just helping the frail old woman to move into a chair. The wife changed the dirty bed. "Cyril!" The woman screamed, not at all expecting to see her husband, and the fact that he had brought her here, pretending to be a taxi driver. "Light, forgive me, for God's sake," embarrassed, he said, looking at the old woman. "I didn't know what to think. I decided that I would be here." "And who were you going to find here?" Narrowing his eyes, his wife asked. "What, are you jealous? You decided to test my loyalty. What could I think? I thought that you run to your lover regularly." The wife kissed him on the cheek and smiled. "Granny, meet me, this is my husband, whom I told you about. And since he now knows everything, I think it will be possible to introduce you to your grandson. But there will be no peace with him, he is such a fidget with us." "It's good granddaughter, that's smart." Grandmother spoke with difficulty, but Sveta explained. "This is my only relative, my paternal grandmother. My parents died when I was little. She raised me alone. Forgive me for not saying right away, I felt ashamed, you are so solid, you took care of me, you never spared money. You see, I was afraid that if I told about a sick grandmother, you would decide that I was a freeloader. And I want to put all my relatives on your neck," and I was silent. Previously, she did not often come to visit, but recently her grandmother fell ill, she can hardly do anything herself. So, I began to secretly travel. To feed, clean up. But you give light, but what do you think I am, what a miser or completely soulless, how could you think that? Why did you hide my grandmother from me for so long? She is your own person." Cyril embraced his wife, who was bustling around the house, and sighed with relief. "Don't worry, Grandma, you won't have to vegetate here alone anymore, we will take you to our place, we will live together." Since then, Grandma Sveta has moved to a chic country house, where she had at her disposal a spacious bright room and a nurse. In the care and environment of loving relatives, the old woman began to recover, she felt better, and Svetlana began to take her out even for a walk in the garden. She often reminded Cyril of this crazy trick that revealed her secret. And he only blushed, was embarrassed and justified himself by the fact that it is difficult to believe in a fairy tale after past betrayals. But now he is firmly convinced that he has the best wife in the world and a full family, including a cat rescued by his once beloved Svetlana.